You cannot, in good faith, equate homosexuality with the removal of healthy body parts of children.
I've been saying this for a while. It hurts you long term. Think about it. Like, I don't know how many years I've shaved off my life. I don't know when I'm gonna die, but I don't think, from what I've done, from what I understand, and how the gonad's work and long-term hormone impacts, I know I have shortened my life statistically based on the available information. Cardiovascular disease, stroke, heart disease, the cancer risk, the osteoporosis, autoimmunity issues, you name any one of those, and I'm at a heightened risk for that. I I don't know. I don't know, and I'm not gonna say that, but the younger you get, the worse it gets. Puberty gives your body a chance to develop your bones, your muscles, your whole body structure, your brain, everything. It's so imperative in being able to be a healthy adult, and we're robbing people from it, and they've got nowhere else to turn. Okay?
At 16, the very first medical intervention I ever had was a double mastectomy. A few months later, I was then put on cross-sex hormones. I am now 21. I live with constant joint pain, to the point that it is so bad that I have not been able to get out of bed to go to class some days. My vocal cords ache, my breasts are gone, and I will never know if I will be able to carry a child, because there's a good possibility I'm sterile. You call this care? I could not consent to this due to both my age and my mental health conditions, yet you call this care. My parents were baited with the idea that I would commit suicide if this was not given to me. They were told, would you rather have a dead daughter or a living son? These are not the words of a doctor. They are the words of a politically motivated activist. Kids deserve a chance to grow up whole. They deserve a chance at life.
Top surgery is a really interesting euphemism that we use to describe a double mastectomy. Like, it's interesting to me that even people in the trans community can't call it what it objectively is. I think it's probably because people want to convince others or convince themselves that this surgery is just not a big deal, but it is an incredibly life-altering surgery.
Again, I've been very stressed about this. It's a very terrible thing that I've done to myself, especially since I mutilated and destroyed my body. All because I believed these lies that I was told.
My ideal is not necessarily that, nobody transition or that everyone should detransition or whatever. I just think that we need to be able to have these critical discussions about what exactly this thing we call dysphoria is or might be, or what kind of things might look like dysphoria. Are there options that work as well for transition, transition for some people? Are there options that might work better? Really what I want to get across is to stay critical and to keep questioning.
Yes, you will doubt your transition forever if you have any introspection whatsoever.
In my case, I was prescribed testosterone after one phone visit and also approved for top surgery after one phone interview. Sadly, I am not the only person this has happened to, and the number of detransitioners such as myself is sharply increasing.
I had to go through grieving my female voice that I would never get back again. I thought for a while that just going on testosterone ruined my life. I thought that having the voice that I have would lead to despair, would lead to loneliness, would lead to being ostracized and isolated and never being accepted as a woman. But none of that is true.
Most detransitioners can confirm that they experience severe gender dysphoria, and maybe even still do, but that the standard treatment for said dysphoria, medical transition, didn't alleviate their dysphoria, or the negative outcomes of that medical transition outweighed any reduced dysphoria they did experience. People who have detransitioned believed we were trans. We lived a trans experience, and most of us had diagnosable gender dysphoria, but the standard treatment still didn't work for us. The fault in this case doesn't rest on the people who are suffering with gender dysphoria and were then led to believe that medical transition would cure them of that dysphoria. It lies with the fact that gender dysphoria is not a well-understood condition, and yet the most invasive treatment possible is prescribed as a one-size-fits-all solution.
This narrative that children quote unquote know their true selves, or they know their gender identity if they believe that they're transgender, or that detransition is purely due to social stigma or due to transphobia. If you actually talk to detransitioners, as I have, you'll hear the reasons as to why they have chosen to detransition, why they have regret about their decisions, in many cases having undergone medicalization. There's so many other issues that these young people are struggling with, whether it is being on the autism spectrum. They have, many of them, if not all I've spoken to, have a history of sexual trauma. They are not comfortable with their sexuality if they are gay. They may have anxiety, depression, and in some cases, as in Ryan's case, if it's a young woman who reaches puberty, is not comfortable in her body, she thinks that because she doesn't like being sexualized by society, that means that she's actually a man, or she's so-called non-binary, even though there are only two genders.
I was told that I was being given a cure, and I wouldn't want to kill myself anymore. And it wasn't true. I didn't want to cry in this video, but this is such a hard thing to talk about. I lost a lot of things to this, and I just hope that anyone else who's going through what I went through as a young girl will not be prescribed hormones and surgery because of other things. There are so many mental health disorders that make you hate your body, and the solution isn't to change your body, it's to fix your brain.
They actually told my mom and dad that if I wasn't allowed to transition, then it was likely that I would kill myself, which wasn't true. I wasn't suicidal until I started the treatments.
Over the span of those 10 years, there was no one who would follow my development. And also when I was at the clinic again, saying that I am about to detransition, or I was detransitioning already, I was not put into any statistic.
It's just a hard realization. It's a hard pill to swallow that all those 10 years I was not really authentic self. My authentic self would have been being just a feminine, gender non-conforming gay man.
With Detrans Awareness Day, not only do we want to say to other detransitioners, you have a right to speak, you shouldn't be silenced, and you shouldn't be too embarrassed to talk about it, and you deserve proper care. So on Detrans Awareness Day, we are asking people to share the hashtag, to share videos, to share posts or stories, to spread the experiences of detransitioners, and to join us in asking for better support, better medical care, more treatments to be offered to people who are suffering from gender dysphoria, so we can do everything in our power that we currently have to stop detransition from becoming commonplace.
I saw 2 mental health professionals who signed off on a non-binary double mastectomy. What I needed was a therapist to tell me that there is no biological equivalent to a non-binary identity. What I needed was somebody to explore the discomfort with my breasts in relation to trauma, not to have them removed. I now live every day with a mutilated body because therapists affirmed my delusion. The reality is that therapists are working with an ideology that does not allow them to question gender identity, fearing that they'll be viewed as transphobic and engaging in conversion therapy. I've had 2 different therapists tell me, being gay is not a form of mental illness. Therefore, being non-binary is also not a form of mental illness.
At the age of 26, I began to experience renal failure. I was jaundiced, vomiting, and urinating blood. The only drug I was on at this time was synthetic testosterone. I saw a new practitioner who suggested I stop the injectable synthetic testosterone in exchange for a topical version at a much lower dose. My symptoms improved. At 27, I stopped altogether. Shortly after, I experienced the first of 3 transischemic attacks, also called mini-strokes. Then, at 28, I was diagnosed with endometriosis and adenomyosis. At 29, I lost my uterus and my cervix to the disease and had a hysterectomy. After the operation, I discovered that my vaginal tissue was excessively thinned and weakened by testosterone use. I had multiple tears, which led to infections. I also learned that my ovaries no longer function and I am on supplemental estrogen. Today, I implore you to consider the risks these medical experiments have and stop this method of treatment. We cannot consent to treatment as experimental as this. No one, child or adult, should have to go through the constant health battles I've been through. Instead of my mental health being taken care of, I was sold a medication that has left me with physical pain, emotional trauma, and the same mental illness I had before.
That I didn't want to be a woman before I had ever even experienced being a woman. I had no idea what being a woman was like because I was a child, and now I feel like I will never entirely know. I want to say that I really feel like some people in the trans community and the trans medicalists and the doctors really, really target the most vulnerable of us.
I am D-trans.